Once upon a time, in a bustling city, there lived a bright and beautiful young woman named Zara. An only child, she was the pride and joy of her family. Zara had always been a compassionate soul, and from a young age, she knew she wanted to help people. So, after years of hard work, she became a respected doctor. Her parents couldn't have been prouder. They always called her their saving grace. Zara worked at one of the largest hospitals in the city where her dedication to her patients was unparalleled. But things at the hospital weren't quite as they seemed. Zara began noticing strange occurrences in the hospital. Patients who came in with minor ailments mysteriously never left. They either died unexpectedly during surgery or disappeared without a trace. Some surgeries were scheduled late at night, behind closed doors, with staff who were never seen again. It was all too suspicious. The senior doctors, especially Dr. J, were secretive, always covering things up. Her suspicions grew, but Zara had no solid proof, until one night, she stumbled upon something that would change everything. A patient was rushed into the hospital late at night. Dr. J, as usual, told Zara to go home, but this time, her curiosity wouldn't let her. She pretended to leave, but instead, she hid in the shadows near the operating room, waiting. What she saw next confirmed her worst fears. Dr. J and two other doctors were performing a highly secretive surgery, harvesting organs from the patient. They were stealing organs from vulnerable people and selling them on the black market. The horrifying realization hit Zara hard. This was why so many patients never made it out of the hospital alive. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. She began recording, capturing every horrifying detail. But in her panic, Zara accidentally knocked over a tray, causing a loud crash. The sound echoed through the room, and Dr. J's eyes snapped toward her hiding spot. "There," he shouted. "Get her." Zara's heart raced. The two other doctors dashed toward her, but she was quicker. Grabbing her phone, she bolted down the hallway, her pulse pounding in her ears. She knew she had to escape and protect the evidence she now had. As she ran, she switched off her phone, knowing they'd try to take it from her. Thinking quickly, she hid it inside a large flower vase near the door to the parking lot. The two men raced after her, determined to silence her. Zara, desperate to escape, managed to reach her car and sped off. The doctors followed in their own vehicles, but in her panic state, Zara lost control of her car, crashing into a tree. Everything went dark. Zara was rushed back to the hospital she had just fled from. But this time, she wasn't the doctor. She was the patient. She had slipped into a coma, her life now hanging by a thread, now at the mercy of the very people who wanted her dead. Her parents were called, and they rushed to the hospital. At the hospital, Dr. J watched over her, a sinister smile curling his lips. Knowing she had seen too much, he sedated her every night with a powerful drug that would keep her in a coma, slowly killing her so that she could never reveal his secret. Zara's body was motionless, but her spirit was wide awake. She floated through the halls, screaming for help, but no one could hear her. She wandered through the city, a ghost in a world that could no longer see her. She watched as her family cried at her bedside, her mother praying desperately for her recovery. Zara wanted so badly to tell them she was still there, but her words fell on deaf ears. One night, feeling lost and frustrated, Zara wandered around and ended up sitting on the balcony of a small apartment. The apartment belonged to a young man named Clinton, a good-looking bartender who worked nearby. Clinton, restless, looked out of his window and was surprised to see a woman sitting on his balcony. His mind raced. How had she gotten there? He stepped outside, confused but calm. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "How did you get up here?" Zara, deep in thought, turned slowly to face him, wondering if he could actually see her. "Can you see me?" she asked, her voice shaking. Clinton chuckled. "Of course I can. You're sitting right there. What's going on?" Tears filled Zara's eyes. "No one else can see me," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You're the only one." Clinton raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Zara, desperate for help, told Clinton everything, how she was stuck in a coma, how Dr. J was keeping her sedated, how she needed someone to save her. At first, Clinton thought it was a joke. He even laughed. But Zara, determined to prove she was telling the truth, disappeared right in front of him and then reappeared. Clinton's jaw dropped. "Okay, this is crazy. What do you want me to do?" Zara begged Clinton to help her. She explained that Dr. J was sedating her every night to keep her in a coma and that her family had no idea. The video evidence on her phone could expose everything, but her body was lying helpless in the hospital. She asked Clinton to go to her house and tell her mother to remove her from the hospital before it was too late. Clinton hesitated, unsure if he was still dreaming or if he had somehow wandered into a nightmare. "I can't just walk up to your mom and tell her this," he said, shaking his head. Zara, frustrated, began taunting Clinton. She followed him to work, popped up while he was watching TV, and even watched him while he slept. After days of this, Clinton gave in. "Fine," he said one morning, rubbing his eyes. "I'll help you, but on one condition. Zara crossed her arms. What? You help me win at poker tonight. Tell me what cards the other players have. Zara laughed, but agreed. That night they went to play poker games, with Zara's ghostly assistants spying on the other players' cards. Clinton cleaned out the poker table. True to his word, the next day, Clinton went to Zara's house, where her mother was getting ready to visit her at the hospital. He knocked on the door. When Zara's mother opened the door, Clinton nervously introduced himself and explained why he was there. Your daughter, she's in danger, he started, his words stumbling. Dr. J is keeping her in a coma. Zara stood beside him, invisible to her mother. Her heart sank as her mother's face twisted in disbelief. How dare you come here and talk about my daughter like that? Her mother snapped. Get out. But then Zara, invisible beside Clinton, whispered something in his ear, something only Zara and her mother knew. Clinton repeated the words, and Zara's mother's face went pale. Tears welled up in her eyes. She knew in that moment that Zara was still with them, and Clinton was telling the truth. Together, they rushed to the hospital. When they arrived, they caught Dr. J in Zara's room, about to administer the final dose of sedatives that would have killed her. Clinton shoved him away, and Zara's mother called the police. Dr. J and his accomplices were arrested, and Zara was moved to a new hospital, far from the hands of those who sought to harm her. After a few days, Zara finally woke up, her spirit reunited with her body. Her family rejoiced, grateful for her miraculous recovery. The next day, Clinton visited her at the hospital, but to his dismay, Zara didn't recognize him. Her mother explained how Clinton had played a crucial role in saving her life. Zara, though confused, thanked him for his kindness, even though she had no memory of ever meeting him. Clinton, heartbroken, left the gift he had brought and walked away, saddened that the girl who had unknowingly stolen his heart couldn't remember him. Determined not to give up, Clinton resolved to win Zara's heart. He decided to visit her often, hoping that over time she might feel the connection they once shared. Weeks passed, and Zara was finally discharged from the hospital. Her family welcomed her home with a small dinner to celebrate her recovery, and they invited Clinton as a special guest. During the dinner, Zara requested that Clinton accompany her to the parking lot of the original hospital to retrieve her phone, which she had hidden the night she discovered the corrupt doctors. Clinton agreed, and the next day, he drove Zara down to the hospital. Together, they retraced her steps, their hearts pounding as they approached the spot. To their relief, the phone was still there, undisturbed inside the large flower vase where she had hidden it. With the phone in hand, Zara now had the solid evidence needed to testify against the corrupt doctors. Later, In court, Zara's testimony and the video footage from her phone became the key evidence that sealed the case. Dr. J and his accomplices were convicted, and justice was finally served. They were sentenced to life imprisonment, ensuring they could no longer harm anyone again. As Zara continued to heal and rebuild her life, Clinton never left her side. He visited her often, and over time, their bond grew stronger. Though Zara couldn't remember the ghostly adventures they had shared, she felt an undeniable connection to him. Little by little, she began to fall for the man who had not only helped save her life but also stood by her, unwavering. In the end, Zara's journey between life and death brought justice to the innocent and love into her heart. Together, Zara and Clinton proved that even in the darkest moments, light and love can always find a way.